So, today we are heading back over to the airwaves of one of my favorite shows, the BPM Sports Talk Radio Show, because what they did in one of their previous episodes on June 6th was they had David Ettegi as a guest. He is a sports management hockey agent, and he does stuff for BPM Sports, as indicated by this radio hit. And even though the 17-minute video with Ettegi in his comments actually talks about Ivan Demidov in the title, there is a lot more other content that is in here that I wanted to dissect and break down. Because when it comes to one of the other sentiments that Ettegi goes out there and shares, we'll go over onto dose.ca because the author D. Miller went out there and transcribed some of these thoughts. So I'll leave a link in the description to the audio if you want to listen to Ettegi in his comments. It's in French, of course. And I'll also leave a link to this article right here. How, according to Ettegi, KAAPO KAKKO and Patrick Laine seem to be two logical trade targets for the Montreal Canadiens. Now talk about your fantastic Finns, eh? I get it, this is not the same team that has Jesperi Kotkaniemi and Arturi Lehkonen. Now sure, they still, or do I want to say still? I don't know if it's still, but they kind of had Joel Armia still hovering around there, so there's one Finn. But when it comes to the days of Finnish prosperity with the Canadiens, they are kind of bleak now compared to before. So, what better way to go out there and bolster that up by adding some extra fantastic Finns? Let's scroll out there and talk about some of these ideas here. Take a look at the sentiments shared by Ettegi. There are two candidates who really make sense for the Canadiens, KAAPO KAKKO and Patrick Laine. Both are scorers who have fallen on hard times with their respective teams, and the former agent believes their styles would fit well with the Canadiens. KAAPO KAKKO is a Kirby Doc project, and Patrick Laine has proven in recent years he can be one of the NHL's top scorers when he puts in the necessary effort. Ettegi's comments are interesting in a way because ultimately both players have an offensive style that could fit the needs of the Montreal organization. Now, let's go out there and talk about each of these guys before reading the rest of the article and the ideas here. KAAPO KAKKO is an interesting one because I don't necessarily think offensive when I think about Kakko. At least, not anymore. The guy had 19 points in 61 games played this season and 2 points in 15 games in the playoffs. He really has not put it together, and ever since the 40-point season that he had accomplished last year, I think a lot of Rangers fans were saying, yeah, this guy's going to be on the up and up. We're seeing Alexis Lafreniere breakout. KAAPO KAKKO, he's due for a breakout too. And unfortunately for him, he really just was not able to do that properly. He was being played in the third line. He was no longer a top-line guy. And that kind of sentiment changed the way that KAAPO KAKKO was able to produce at the NHL level. Sure, he has good board-winning abilities. He is a fairly decent two-way player. But offensively, which is what you drafted him to be, a power forward-like all-situations kind of guy, second overall in 2019, he has not fulfilled anywhere near that potential. And right now, since he is 23, 24 years old, there is reason to believe that KAAPO KAKKO still has more to give. It's just the Rangers may be running out of patience, and they probably wouldn't want to give him too many extra chances at this point, considering their direction and considering the other players they have on their team. Zibanejad, Kreider, Panarin, these guys are a lot older. How much time do you have left to wait for a guy like KAAPO KAKKO to become good, especially since he's been disappointing and he's declined from last year to this year? There certainly is reason to believe that KAAPO KAKKO could be on the move, and if Montreal is going to be that team, then hey, be my guest, Martin St. Louis, for trying to be the guy to fix KAAPO KAKKO's career. We've seen St. Louis work his wonders with guys in this age range and bring out the best in these younger dudes. So, could KAAPO KAKKO be a product of one of these shifts in mindset as well? If there's anybody who's able to change the way a player views and approaches the game who is young and still easily influenced, it's Martin St. Louis. And if there's anybody that needs a wake-up call, I feel like KAAPO KAKKO is right in that boat, so it would make sense to me if the Montreal Canadiens wanted to do it. Plus the fact that Jeff Gordon literally does have connections with the KAAPO KAKKO situation in New York because he was kind of the guy that drafted him after all. So yeah, there's another very easy to understand connection there. As for Patrick Laine, he is a tad older. He was drafted in 2016 compared to KAAPO KAKKO's 2019, and Laine, already at 26 years old, is coming off of a year where he did not play. He was in the NHL's Players Assistance Program. He also was injured. He only had 9 points in 18 games played. And realistically, when I think about Laine and the Blue Jackets, my mind jumps to the past 2 years compared to this season. He had 52 points in 55 games last year, 56 points in 56 games the year before that. He has been a pretty good offensive monster, just not in the same 40-goal scoring territory that he was at in his second season in the NHL in 2017-18. That already is now like half a decade ago. So seriously, Patrick Laine has been in the NHL for a long time. It's kind of difficult to believe that when you think about it. I mean, it feels like yesterday that these guys and Austin Matthews, Puljujarvi, Juolevi, they were all top prospects, but either way, all Lego is getting old talk aside, Laine is indeed one of these guys who, if he has a change of scenery, there could be some sort of a spark as well. Although I will say, I don't know if the Montreal fit really does work here, because Patrick Laine doesn't really seem like the guy, in my opinion, to be able to strive under top-tier pressure. And you already know that if he gets sent over to Montreal, he's going to have all the pressure on him. Like, you know how some guys just thrive in that environment? They love the spotlight. They excel when they're given that role. Ilya Kovalchuk was one of those guys. Tyler Toffoli, I think, was one of those guys. You have some of the Russians as well that had that kind of trait. I don't think Patrick Laine is that guy. That's not an indictment against him as a player, it's just a trait that I think probably exists more so in his game based off of what we have seen out of him in the past and his experiences. I feel like Columbus is a lot more of a quieter team than Montreal, and thus it's a little bit easier for Laine to get by. I mean, we already saw some of the drama from earlier this year of Laine and Columbus. Some podcasters making some very inappropriate comments about him. Not saying that Montreal fans are any better or any worse, but I'm just saying if the spotlight is going to be bigger and badder in Montreal, imagine what else could be said. Is that really something that would benefit Patrick Laine? And for a guy who is making $8.7 million with a modified no-trade clause, he would have to control his destiny if he were to get traded as well, even though we all kind of recognize that there is good fuel for a Patrick Laine trade, considering the Blue Jackets may want to remain competitive and Laine not playing just doesn't help them do that. Let's go back over onto the article and finish off the Ittagi comments. There are conversations about the certain risks attached to each of these guys. KAAPO KAKKO will be an RFA this summer, and if the Rangers aren't going to let him go for peanuts because he was drafted second overall, even if it doesn't seem like he belongs in New York anymore, he still has great value. And Laine has a contract that pays him $8.7 million annually and ends in the summer of 2026. The Jackets would probably withhold some of his salary because Laine isn't worth as much, but still. These are the two ideas that I wanted to go over in this video. Ultimately, if you were to see one of these two get sent over to Montreal, if KAAPO KAKKO is able to get that Kent Hughes treatment, if he's able to bolster himself up and act as another one of these 2019 guys that is able to improve, then I'm in for it. I like him. He's young enough that I think there's a lot of fuel there still. And when you talk about 2019, it's been very kind for the Canadiens. Kirby Dach, Cole Caulfield, Alex Newhook. Everybody's talking about Trevor Zegras. Everybody's talking about KAAPO KAKKO now too. There could be yet another name that makes things interesting. As for Patty Laine, I feel like this is a lot more of a difficult slope. He's more expensive. I'd say he's less guaranteed, mostly because of his situation with the NHL's Players Assistance Program. We don't really know how far he is going to go in with that program and whether or not he will have an immediate impact coming back and he'll be as good as he was before. Like, it's kind of difficult, especially with all the injuries that he had sustained over the years as well. I'd say because there's a little bit less known about Patrick Laine right now, it's a little bit more of a risk, plus the fact that I don't know if the Montreal environment would be as good for him, plus he's a lot older than the KAAPO KAKKO thing. I mean, we talk about the timeline, right? Nick Suzuki, Caulfield, Slafkovsky, right? Laine is a tad older than Nick Suzuki, so he does put himself above the age range just a tad, but still, if you wanted to say that he's young enough to grow alongside of this core, that's certainly a fair perspective as well. You could say that Laine being paired with Slafkovsky, they could learn off of each other. That could be a really nice pairing. But either way, between KAAPO KAKKO and Patrick Laine, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about the Montreal Canadiens potentially targeting both of these guys. Again, links are in the description to the audio with David Ittagi on BPM Sports, as well as the article where we read the comments. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.